Welcome to tonight's podcast. You may not agree with us, and this is episode 9. I'm Eric Lowery.
And I'm Eric Thomas.
And we welcome you in as the podcast is brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. You can dial up Modley's at 304-253-HELP and Massey Power Sports. And Eric, right before we turned on the camera, we were just talking, man, look how fast this high school football season has flown by. Only 3 weeks remaining in the regular season.
And you know, the saying goes, time flies when you're having fun. And we've been having fun covering Friday Night Lights and sprinkling a little middle school football in, and use volleyball and basketball, elementary basketball as well. It's been a fun fall.
It has been, and you know, right now there are a lot of key games throughout these next 3 weeks in all 4 classes for teams that know they're going to be in the playoffs, for just trying to see where their seating is going to be, and for other teams right now maybe on the outside looking in, trying to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting last 3 final weeks of high school football for sure.
All right, so we'll start what we always do in the big class, and we'll recap. And of course, the biggest game in Class 4A. Of course, Princeton is now 3A, but it just doesn't seem right that Beckley and Princeton are not in the same class. But it was a tough game in Mercer County, and Princeton able to come back and beat Beckley in a tight game, 14-7.
Yeah, and it was a game, a tale of 2 halves. Beckley was able to really control the ball in that first half. I mean, we talked about that in our preview show last week, and I thought Beckley had the type of team this year that could really run it and play keep away to keep Chance Barker and all those, high-powered weapons from Princeton off the field, and they were leading 7-0, just not able to really hold on for the victory.
And even though Princeton did not have Markel Lowe and the receiver Prosser still, I think if you would have told Coach Surratt at Beckley on Thursday you'd hold Princeton to 14 points, you would think that maybe Beckley's going to win that game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that didn't make a big impact on Princeton, but they have a lot of capable kids on that team, so it's just not a 2-man show down there, and that was. No moral victory for Princeton, for Beckley, because I think Beckley thought they should have went down there and won, and they had a couple of touchdowns called back, had a couple of lapses on that. They gave up a 4th and 10 for the touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown. So it was one of those where they had the down and distance, not able to make a play and get off the field. But I think they really showed, and we talked about this, that Princeton team can battle with any team in any level in the state.
And Eric, more to your point, and I don't know if you're aware of this, their middle school team is undefeated now as well. So they've got a really good high school program where they're currently undefeated, playing in AAA, and their middle school currently undefeated. Right now, Princeton's got some things going on.
Yeah, they got a good program, the feeder program going in, and they get away, not get away, but their feeder school, it's good that it's just one school, where Beckley's kind of a little divided, but they still, once they come together, they'll have a good team as well.
As we move on into Class AAA, Shady got a big win on the road. They went into Wyoming County, and they shut out Wyoming East 41-0. Of course, Shady's now 5-2. Wyoming East struggling this year, 1-6, but Shady did what they were expected to do.
Yeah, Shady went on the road and handled business, and this week's poll, they're coming in at 15, so they're setting themselves up to be a playoff participant this year.
Like we talked about in the beginning of our podcast, you've got teams that are right there on the edge. They've got some critical games coming up that, depending on the way it goes, whether they're going to be in the playoffs or on the outside looking in.
Well, we'll discuss who they have coming up Friday night, and that's going to be a great battle for both of those teams as far as playoff.
Right, we'll talk about that in our next segment. Also, we've got to talk about the game you and I did on Video Productions, and Independence flexed their muscles as they defeated Mingo Central 54-28. Now, Independence now 5-2. Mingo Central falls to 2-4. But here's the thing, Eric, we'll just have to wait and see how this plays out. With only 2 games remaining for Independence, and through no fault of their own, they weren't able to play that Bluefield game. And they were thinking for the first time in like 4 or 5 years they're going to be able to get 10 games, and now only having 9. Wonder if that's going to that'll hurt them or not hurt them. I guess we just have to wait and see how that.
Well, we have to wait that one out, but they're coming in at number 4 this week, which would put them in that
get 2 home
games. But they have a game this week if they can go out and pull a major upset. Regardless of what happens in Summers County, I think they have Summers County left. I mean, you have a big game this week to really try to solidify yourself in that top 4.
And we'll talk about that big game in our next segment. And maybe if Independence wins, I don't know if that'd be enough points to push them from 4-1, but definitely maybe to 2.
Well, you got a lot of points that you would rack up
in
bonus points
right.
if you were able to get that win.
And then, of course, in single A, well, not really single A, Liberty is double A. I beg your pardon to Liberty saying single A, double A. Liberty was off and a much needed bye. And I'm told that Jackson Workman had been working out and been practicing a little bit, but not sure if he's going to be able to recover and to come back at the end of the year.
Wow, that's some quick healing with a break. I don't know if it's a break or a fracture. We'll let the coaches and who's his dad as well. So if he thinks he's well enough to go out and compete, we'll have to see Friday night.
We'll let the medical staff see what the case is there. This podcast brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating. 304-253-HELP. You never know when you need a plumber till you need a plumber. And also Massey Power Sports. And Eric, with this podcast, you want to do what?
You want to like, share, and subscribe at Warden Broadcast Network on YouTube.
All right, now we move to the games this coming Friday. Beckley coming off that disappointing loss to Princeton will be at home. They're playing at AAA Spring Valley, and Spring Valley is 4-3. And Spring Valley in recent years have had Beckley's number, but I think we talked about this in our other podcast of how much better Beckley's been on the defensive side of the ball. And years past, you might have think, hey, this is a win for Spring Valley, but not so fast. I think Beckley's got a real good shot to win this game Friday night.
And I want to say something real quick. Beckley lost a key player in Landon Jones. My heart goes out to him. Tough kid, plays linebacker and tight end and a little, H-back, a little running back for Beckley. And I hope the kids on the team, will rally around him and go out and get a victory. And you're right, Spring Valley, we used to look at Beckley and probably put a W. But now, I think this is the same. You're talking about Spring Valley we watched earlier in the year, on video productions broadcasts that we would check in on. They're a little more multiple this year. They used to just be a straight run team.
Power team. Right.
But now they spread it out and pass it a little bit. And I just think Beckley's defense will have to come up big again Friday night.
I think the big thing for Beckley, and I think you'd probably agree with this, you can't let Princeton beat you twice. I think that it was a tough loss. It looked like you said, Beckley played right with them, and it kind of slipped through their fingers at the end. And they got to rally around the injury, the loss, the games at home. That should definitely help.
Well, I really think this team and the makeup of this team and the coaching staff, I really don't think they'll let this one snowball into two, because I think they feel when they watch the film the next day or Monday that they left some points out there on the field. Of course, they had two. Let's just say what it is. They had 2 scores called back.
Yeah.
I mean, if you get that, you're right there with Princeton in the end. If you just rectify, I think it may have been a hold a couple of times, and they were right there.
Of course, we know all 16 teams in 4A make the playoffs, so Beckley fighting for a home game. And if Beckley coming down the stretch can win 2 of the remaining 3 games, I think they have a good chance to find themselves in the top 8.
And that's what you and I talked about. They need to win 2 of these final 3, and I think they can finish 7 or 8 around there.
And if they win all 3 of them, they can maybe finish in the top 5.
Yeah, and it's, everything's out there in front of them, and that's what's the beauty of this now. Even we kept saying all 16 make it, but you still every week it's a playoff game because you have a chance to really raise your seeding.
Take a look at the AAA team in Raleigh County, and we touched on this in our last segment. Shady going on the road, going to Summersville to take on Nicholas County. Nicholas County's AA. Each team is 5-2. And this will be a very difficult game for Shady.
Yeah, anytime you go on the road to, is it Gene Morehouse?
It's Gene Morrison.
Morrison. I say Gene Morehouse was Marshall University.
Right.
But anyway, he's a good coach, and the reason I say that, we had a chance to broadcast 2 Independence versus Nicholas County games.
Right.
And I think what he does with his personnel, he runs. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They don't have a lot of penalties, and they run the same plays, but they're usually out of different formations. And it's hard to really get your kids to really buy into that. And that's what I think Shady will have to come up big defensively, because Nicholas County's coming off of was a shocker to me to go to Greenbrier East and really lay the wood to them as they did this past Friday night.
And here's the thing for Shady coming down the stretch. These last 3 games, these are all playoff teams on the road against Nicholas County. Now, this is their final away game in the regular season. They finish out the season at home against Westside and at home against Wheeling Central. And if Shady can run the table and win these last 3 games, they could find themselves maybe getting a home game.
Well, here's my advice to Shady. You want to get out of that 16, 15, 14 slot.
Right.
And you know why? You
got
the big bad wolves at the very top.
You never want to play. You never want to be in that 16, 15, 14 slots.
Yeah,
Play
that's
1, 2, or
true.
3.
But sometimes, but the thing is, they have a chance with this Nicholas County game and Wheeling Central, a good team, very winnable game, and West Side at home. That'll give you a lot of points to maybe move up.
And I'm sure all the coaches are selling this to their players. We're in playoff mode now. The playoffs start now for a lot of teams.
Yeah, Friday night is what we've been saying, the playoff game.
Then the biggest game, perhaps, is a game that we will have, Eric, you and I will have on Video Productions. Of course, Princeton's in AAA. They're 7-0. They're taking on Independence 5-2 at Coal City. Independence number 4 in AA. And Princeton, a AAA team. Princeton number 2 in AAA. And to my knowledge, in the regular season, first time they've ever played in a regular season
I think
game.
they've only scrimmaged one time. And we need to talk about this because this is where I think the SSAC influenced the schedule and then took back the classification, and it really, I mean, I'm not crying wolf or crying for Independence because I think they're more than capable to compete with Princeton, but you wonder if they would have scheduled this had they known that they were not going to be AAA.
Probably not. Just like you go back to Beckley. Had Beckley known that Oak Hill was going to go from 4A to 3A, they probably still would have scheduled that anyway because it's a rivalry game, but they may not have played Spring Valley because they just got them back on the schedule thinking they were 4A, and they've been playing Preston, so they may not have played some of these games. Like I said, in Beckley's case, they probably still would have played Greenbrier, East, and Oak Hill, but I'm with you. Independence, if they would have known that Princeton was going to be 3A and they were going to be 2A, they may not have scheduled this.
With that being said, though, Maris, let's talk about on the field, because I think that Independence has enough in their stable in their first, their first teamers. But I just don't know if the depth can hold up against, the type of team that Princeton has, because you can put Silas Nelson, Brock Green, all those kids. They want to see, this is a litmus test for them.
Well, I think each team has the capabilities of big plays. They might light up the scoreboard, both teams at Coal City on Friday.
Someone might have to be out there and change light bulbs, on this scoreboard. But I'm anxious to see, because I love the way Silas, Nelson runs the ball between the tackles. And once he gets outside, he has a lot of speed. But this will be one of those games where I think the big plays, Princeton can temper those. They had a 3-4-1, probably the best pass we saw completed all year, from Green to Nelson.
Right.
Late, was it in the third quarter?
It was in the third quarter, 3rd and 15. I remembered. I went back and watched the replay.
3rd and 15
from the 47 of Mingo Central, and it might be the best, not just pass play, but the best single play that we've seen all year.
Incredible pass, and even a difficult catch the way he caught it. But the thing is, I don't think they're going to live by that with Princeton.
Well,
you're not going to be able to go over top and have that time for when you got a D1 signee on the other side.
And then Princeton with Markel Lowe and Prosser, who did play against Beckley, will return for this game.
And you know what? You know what happens when the kid has to sit out a game before that he didn't think he had to sit out. You got 2 guys coming back. They're going to be chomping at the bits to end Independence's win streak.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think for Independence to get the win, your best players have to be your best players. I'm sure Princeton feels the same way. I'm sure Princeton takes the attitude that our best players have to perform well to be our best players.
And they all look at scores and all that. They really want to come up here and play Independence.
Also, this could be, and Eric, you know this better than I would, this might be the biggest regular season game that Independence has had, maybe, at least recently, maybe ever. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say recently. I mean, you can go back, a few years back, they probably had a couple of ranked teams.
Yeah, but I mean, one maybe as big as this with Princeton, with the Penn State signee and the caliber of team that Princeton is.
And I don't know if, Markel Lowe, the way I've seen him the last 2 years, I think he can play Division I somewhere.
He can too.
On some rosters.
Yes. Definitely. So that'll be on Friday night. Eric and I will have the pleasure of broadcasting that on Video Productions, and looking forward to that.
And we must talk about their quarterback real quick, Chance Barker. I mean, that kid, he's probably the best quarterback in the area.
And I think he can play on Saturday somewhere
as well.
So we're looking forward to that. And Liberty, coming off their bye week, they are 2-5, and they'll be home to Midland Trail.
And Midland Trail, that we talked about them a little bit last week. Midland Trail is one of those teams that, they give people fits around. I remember Independence, we used to open up with them every year, and that was just one of those back and forth series games. And are they going to Glen Daniel?
Yes,
they're going to travel down to Glen Daniel, and they'll be ready, to spar with Liberty Friday night.
And here's the thing with Liberty: at 2-5, you would think their playoff hopes are dashed. They're not, but they have to win out, and they still would have a slight chance of making the playoffs. But nothing happens for Liberty playoff-wise unless they do win out.
Yeah, but I think what Liberty needs to take care of is they need to take care of the ball.
Right.
The ball. I mean, you're talking 10 turnovers in 2 games. Man, I would pull what little bit of hair I have out. If you're the coach, because you're not doing anything but shooting yourselves in the foot and giving extra possessions to teams.
Well, your quarterback, your running backs, and your receivers, maybe they all should carry a football to class this week at Liberty, and the teachers will understand that you got to hang with that football. You get off the bus or out of your car, however you get to school, carry that football. When you go to class, at lunch, carry that football all day.
Or find Lester Hayes and get that stick on
Yeah,
from.
yeah. That'd be kind of messy, though, wouldn't it? All right, our podcast is always brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating, 304-253-HELP, and by Massey Power Sports. And Eric, you want to do what?
Like, share, and subscribe at Warden Broadcast Network.
All right, now we get into the biggest games around the state in each classification. And Eric, by far the biggest game that's not called a state championship game or a playoff game. Martinsburg against Spring Mills. Martinsburg 8-0, Spring Mills 7-0. Spring Mills finally gave up points. They only gave up 2 field goals in their win against University. So now through 7 games, Spring Mills still has not given up a touchdown. But now I think this is the litmus test. We find out really how good Spring Mills is.
Yeah, and Spring Mills, Martinsburg is sitting at their house right now going, yeah, but you didn't play us. You've done a lot. But we're the big boys up here in the Panhandle, and we're going to come on the road and try to squash you. But I think Spring Mills may be up to task this year, because usually when you have a good competitive athletic basketball team, which they should be the favorite to win in basketball.
They were
big. They had players. The guards were not just little skinny guys. They were big guards. So probably play wide out, do a lot of things. I think this is going to be a good one, but I still give Martinsburg, they're the big man on the block, and until somebody knocks them out, I'm going to go with Martinsburg.
I would agree. I still give Martinsburg the edge, but during our Independence and Princeton broadcast, when I say, Eric, you got a final score on that, if you give me a final score that Spring Mills wins, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be. I'm going to lean toward Martinsburg to win the game, even if it's on the road, but it wouldn't shock me if Spring Mills won.
Yeah, and you know what? This could be, the battle at the end of the year as well. This could be a preview of the state championship game. They're both playing for, they're 1-2 now, and they wouldn't meet until the state championship game if it would stay that way.
If it stayed that way, but here's the thing too: if they finish 2-3, or whatever the case may be, or they could meet, say, in the semifinals, 1-4, the winner of this game more likely will have that home field advantage when they play the postseason.
So this is a big battle.
This is huge. All right, now in AAA, and really, I went through the games, Eric. There's so many teams that are jumping over in class, and once again, they scheduled this way because they didn't anticipate beginning of the season that when they made these games, the Team A is going to be in one class and Team B is going to be in the other. So I didn't have a lot of games that were in the same class. So I jumped back to Spring Valley, who's AAA, against Beckley. Spring Valley is 4-3. Beckley's 5-2. This is a playoff game for both of these teams.
Yeah, and you look at Spring Valley's their schedule. Most of it's been 4A schools because
they thought they were going to be 4A.
That's where they were going to be. So this you throw the classification out of this one as you did with the Princeton game, and it's going to be the battle of who makes the least amount of mistakes. I think Beckley, sometimes when they get into these contests, they'll get a false start here, a personal foul there. They just have to really clean it up this week and stay tight and stay, the course and run the ball and be able to produce first downs.
Absolutely. Who wins the trenches is probably going to win the game. But against most of these teams, and as we get coming down the stretch and as we get into the playoffs, for Beckley, I think you'd agree with this, Beckley does not want to get in a shootout like last week. Even though they came up short 14-7, that's the kind of game I think they have to play. I don't think they want to get in no 35, 25, 42, 30-some type of game. No, they want a low-scoring game.
Because they've already had one of those with Parkersburg
and it didn't
South,
work out.
And it didn't work out for them. But if you're Beckley, you're one of those linemen that they have, and I know Coach Doug Legursky works with them now. This is the team where you make a statement. It's not Princeton. It's not. If you want to say lineman it would be Spring Valley. They have 2 guys that, one's starting for WVU now and Wyatt Milam, and they think he might be, pro ready, going to get drafted.
Right.
So they have a lot of big boys across the front that be in Spring Valley, and this is going to be, as you stated, a battle of the trenches.
Yeah, and I think whoever can win the war up front will win the game.
Yep, I would totally agree with that one.
Well, and then once again, I started looking in AAA, and I was in AA, and I really couldn't find anything other than Princeton and Independence. Princeton's AAA, Independence AA. And like I said, if you look at the scoreboard, I went on the Metro News scoreboard, there's so many teams crossing into classes, and as you said earlier, I'm sure it's because schedules were made. They thought that the teams they scheduled this week were going to be in their own class, and there's not that many teams playing each other of their own class.
Yeah, and a lot of teams are calling a personal foul against the WVSSAC.
Yeah.
On that one, and that's just one of those things. You just have to let it roll out and see how it plays out this season.
And then in single A, the one I finally did find, of course, these are not local teams. You got 5-2 Tyler Consolidated against 5-2 South Harrison, and that's a big game. That's both of these teams are fighting for playoff position in single A.
Yeah, and I think Tyler Consolidated played Greenbrier West.
I think they did.
I think they have a really good quarterback and a wideout, and that'll be a great contest, and playoff positioning will be at stake on that one.
Coming down the stretch of this 2024 high school football season, now we're going to switch gears to college. And before we do that, I want to let you know that the podcast is brought to you in part by Modley's Plumbing and Heating, 304-253-HELP, and by Massey Power Sports. And right now they got great deals at Massey Power Sports. I was out there today, beautiful day, and there were people out there looking at all their side-by-sides. And today would have been a great day if that's your thing, power sports, to be out side-by-side, be out in the woods on a beautiful day like today.
Taking in the fall foliage and all that good stuff, riding around in your side-by-side. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe at Warden Broadcast Network.
All right, now we'll switch gears to college football. And of course, you were there in Morgantown on Saturday. The Mountaineers come up a little short, and they got really banged up. Not only did they get beat pretty good by Kansas State, but they got banged up a lot. So, Eric, your assessment of what you saw on Saturday night?
Well, we totally got dominated, but going into this, I really thought Kansas State, in my opinion, was the best team in the Big 12. And I left there still thinking that. Top to bottom, big defensive lineman, good quarterback, good running game. WVU shut down the run, but played it right in Kansas State's heads, because what is the weakness of the WVU defense?
Their pass defense.
Over top. So it's like pick their poison. And I just really think them being on the road this week is a good thing for him.
Well, the thing too, Garrett Green, he had a terrible interception that Kansas State ran back for a touchdown, and he looked like, when I was watching parts of the game on television, that he took a couple of really good shots, and he got up, and when the camera focused on him, it looked like he was kind of like a little woozy,
like I told you,
but they left him in the game.
Like I told you, though, you know how players are, though. I don't think that they saw what we could see, but he got his bell rung a few times, and plus he tried to play through it, but I thought that kind of hurt him. Because that turnover, you can't give a good team a pick six, an extra defensive score, and think you can win the contest.
And now West Virginia has to go on the road against Arizona, a team that they've never played before. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff Eastern time, 4 o'clock local time. It should be very hot out there. One of the things I did hear Neil Brown, actually two things I can mention that I heard Neil Brown talk about this week. The one thing in travel is different. They can't fly out of Clarksburg. He didn't say why. He said they have to go to Pittsburgh, fly out of Pittsburgh, and it's a 4.5-hour flight. He said they wouldn't get back till Sunday morning, till 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, but they're going into a bye week after a much needed bye week. So go out there and try to handle business. I think the line dropped at Arizona's favor by 3. So those guys think this is going to be a toss-up. So I think maybe getting away from the home crowd boos or whatever, and trying to just go on the road, because their best game to date, their best 2 halves of football have been played on the road at Pitt
and Oklahoma State.
Well,
now the other thing that Neil Brown said, of course, he has his press conference on Monday, so he alluded this on Monday, that he's not sure who's going to be the quarterback, and he said he may not know that till Thursday or Friday. And I think that's more of the health reasons of Green, more than just like
it is, because I actually heard on the news earlier that they do pre-screening for these college kids now, like what your brain looks like.
Right, got to take you in the tent and check you out.
Yeah, but then they go back and do, I guess, CAT scans or whatever, and see your brain activity or whatever, and they can clear them by Thursday if they do A, B, C, and D. So we'll see.
Here's a little nugget for you, too. This is the second longest trip in a regular season game for the Mountaineers. Would you have any idea who their longest trip was? And I can tell you this, it was in Don Nehlen's first year in 1980. Would you happen to know that?
No.
Actually, I knew it before I heard it. It was against Hawaii when Don Nehlen took the Mountaineers out there, West Virginia. And I remember watching this game. It came on at midnight. And, of course, it was 7 o'clock Hawaii time. And West Virginia had a 10-point lead. And Hawaii came back and scored 2 touchdowns in the last minute and a half and beat them in Don Nehlen's first season in 1980.
And I think the last time that they played on this field, this Arizona field, was against, it was in a bowl game against Missouri.
Actually, that would have been Arizona State. Arizona State held the Chase Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl at Arizona State's field.
No, but they played Missouri.
At Arizona's field?
Yes, and I think I remember this in '98, and Missouri blocked a kick to start the game, ran it back for a touchdown, where they were up 28-3 and end up winning 34-31.
Yeah, that I don't recall.
Yeah,
so I'm going to take
that.
This is not agree to disagree. I'm just going to take your word.
Yeah, no, but I knew that one because I remember. I remember this when Mark Bolger was the quarterback.
Well, I'm in no position to disagree with you on that because I don't know.
All right. I know that one.
Yeah, and believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, I don't say anything that I don't think I know. I mean, if I don't know it, and I'll correct myself. But normally, I try to get my fact. I always try to have my facts correct.
I just gave you the facts.
I know, so that's what I say. Even though our podcast is named, you may not agree with us, but I can't disagree with you on that because I don't know. All right, how about the Marshall Thundering Herd after having a terrible loss? It seems like about 10 days ago, they bounced back with a nice win.
Yeah, but they bounced back, but they tried to give that one away. I don't know what's going on after halftime. They played the first 2 quarters like gangbusters, and then they didn't look like the same team in the third quarter and let Georgia State battle back in. And I thought it was going to be a repeat of what they did to Georgia Southern.
And they needed a late touchdown run to put the game away.
Yeah, and it was a big-time run, or they were on the verge of losing that contest as well.
So Marshall's 4-3. They have a bye week. They don't play again on November the 2nd, and they'll take on Louisiana Monroe in Huntington on November 2nd.
And I think Louisiana Monroe comes in at 5-1. They might be atop of the division on the West. I don't know which side Marshall's on, but they're the leader of the other side.
Virginia Tech coming off a bye week. They are 4-3. They'll take on Georgia Tech 5-3. Georgia Tech a little bruised and banged up. That they took a pretty good beating in Atlanta against the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, the Fighting Irish got it right, but I hope that the ship is going to sail in this weekend.
Well, he's talking about Navy. We can talk about that because, speaking of Navy, and Navy Notre Dame play this weekend. It's the first time that Army and Navy have been undefeated together this late in the season in both ranks since 1926.
Wow.
How about that? You got to go back to Rock Me days when Notre Dame and Navy played.
Yeah, but as a coaching staff, Notre Dame is worried about this game just because of the style of football it is. It's one of those where I think Notre Dame's going to have to get up on top and don't let Navy hang around because they can run. They'll 2 and 3 yard you to death.
Well, one of the things that Marcus Freeman said in his press conference on Monday that they've been preparing for Navy since May. So he said that even all through spring and all through fall camp, they've had a Navy and Army plan, knowing they were going to play them. They've had that plan in place, and they've been preparing for those teams since the spring. So we'll see how that works out.
That's smart. Because it's kind of like one of those teams you can't just prepare for in a week.
Now we'll switch our gears to the National Football League. And we'll take a look at what's going on in the National Football League. And one of the biggest games, at least on paper, the teams haven't lived up to it. But when I was a kid, it's been a rivalry. And now as an adult, it's a rivalry. And this is near and dear to your heart. San Francisco and Dallas. It's just something that when I was a kid in the 70s, they battled in championship games. They battled in championship games in the 90s. It's been a great rivalry. And they're playing, and both teams desperately need to win. San Francisco's really banged up.
Oh, yeah, but Dallas is very much banged up, too. And you're right. I looked up until 3 years ago. The series was 28 or like 28-27. It was really close. And San Fran has had the Cowboys' numbers the last couple, games.
Beat them in the playoffs the last couple.
Well, they beat them 3 years ago in the playoffs.
In Dallas, and beat them San Francisco 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. So it's just been one of those things. And this is one of those games that I think Dallas really needs if you look at their schedule down the stretch.
And one of the biggest games, and this hasn't happened in a long time, where the Washington Commanders have their 1 o'clock game moved to 4:25, and you have the number 1 and number 2 overall picks battling against one another. The number 1 overall pick, of course, Caleb Williams, quarterback of the Bears, and then Jade Daniels, quarterback for the Commanders.
So, is this right? Didn't they both win the Heisman?
Yes, they both won the Heisman. That is correct.
So I bet this late in the year, having 2 Heisman trophy winners going at it. It happened a couple of weeks ago.
It happened on Monday night, too, with Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a rare thing, but now you've had like back-to-back weeks that it's going to happen, and that's something that Washington has not played a 425 game, I bet, in 4 years.
Yeah, because they're usually in last place at 1 o'clock.
Usually, but they're not now.
I don't care.
Not now. They're top of the division. I know you don't win the division. You don't get no trophies for being in first place in October.
We'll see where
right
they
now.
We'll see where they at in December.
All right, we will see. So we have to do what with this podcast?
You have to like, share, and subscribe at Warden Broadcast Network.
And the podcast is brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating, 304-253-HELP. You never know when you need a plumber till you need a plumber. And Massey Power Sports. And here's our barking dog segment. Woof, woof, woof. And I got to do that. How you like that? Now, Eric, you started off 3-1,
Sure.
but your barking dogs have not had any bite.
Yeah.
You are now 3-4, and I'm 4-3. So for this week, who is your NFL barking dog?
Yeah, but I must say, my barking dogs 2 weeks in a row just fumbled it away. You saw the game. I think I had Miami against the Colts.
And they led the whole game.
Led the whole
and
game.
then lost
And
at the
then,
end.
and so, but that still hurts the wallet.
Yes, right,
But
because they didn't cover.
As much junk as I talked about the Washington Commanders, I call them the Washington Cowboys North now since they took after the Cowboys players up there. I'm going with the Washington Commanders getting 3 points at Chicago.
Actually, it's at Washington.
Oh, is that Washington?
It's at Washington. Getting 3 points at home.
Well, I'll definitely tell them. Oh, yeah, home,
Yes.
a home dog.
Now, here's
I'm
the thing,
taking it.
ladies and gentlemen. Eric and I, when we do our picks, anything we talk about, we do not discuss this prior to this. And our producer and director, Regina Thomas, she can verify that you and I have not discussed any of this. And that is my barking dog of the week as well. When I saw, because I thought Washington would be the favorite, because we talked about before we did the podcast that everybody said, well, Jake Daniels, he got hurt. He came out of the Carolina game and they were beating him so bad he didn't need to go in. And they're like, well, he's day to day, he's week to week, we don't know. But his mama come out and said, he's fine, he's good to go. Washington is a 3-point underdog at home. And I don't pay a lot of attention to these analytics. And on the ESPN analytics, Washington's a 3-point underdog. But they're like 60% favored to win the game.
Yeah.
But Washington is my, and I wrote it down, as you can see here. I wrote it down before we got here. Washington is my barking dog. So Eric and I both have the barking dog. I was going to try to pull the chain on Dallas and really make the dog bark, but I don't think I could. I don't think I could do it because the 49ers have had their number, and I think that. I think that could go either way. So if I had a second barking dog, it would be Dallas because of 49ers injuries and Dallas coming off a bye week.
Yeah, and I think both of those teams, it's going to be a dogfight. I mean, you're looking at, if you're the 49ers, as good as the NFC is this year with Detroit,
Minnesota.
even Minnesota, all in the division, Green Bay,
Washington.
You can't afford, but Washington and the Eagles. I mean, those are teams that have. You can't fall 2-3 games in the loss column.
So I'm going to pull the chain on the Washington Commanders and make that dog bark. And let's see if Eric and I, if we pull it real hard, we'll have the same barking dogs.
I'll get back to 500.
Yes. All right. Once again, Eric, we have to do what?
Like, share, and subscribe at Warden Broadcast Network.
And the podcast brought to you by Modley's Plumbing and Heating, 304-253-HELP, and by Massey Power Sports. Hope everybody has a great evening.